Thank you. Thank you, Jan, for the introduction. And I want to start with a question for you. Who has ever been in a situation like that where he encountered a tiger in a dark cave? Please show me red or green. Okay. Okay, there was one. One, two? There was one at least. Oh, good. But I think the majority has never. And as far as I ask back in my family, he was the last guy who did, allegedly, 20,000 years ago. But I think you know the meme I want to point at here. This is usually the answer when you ask some psychologists, why is it so difficult for people, for human beings, to accept anything new? Or why do we react so badly to change? So, and I want to tell you today about the aspect of emotions connected to change. And the first thing I want to erase from your perception is this cliche, because I think it's wrong for two reasons. First, it doesn't help you anything. Just gives you a clever sounding explanation for your own intellectual complacency of the modern human being, nothing more. And second, by the way, if our ancestors really had been such cowards and would have been driven by fear all the time, I think they would never have picked up the flintstone out of fear. It might fall on their foot or they might cut themselves on the sharp edges. On the contrary, I think they use all of their mental resources to cope with survival. You and me, who wouldn't be here today. But we don't need to go as far back as here to see the effect that this supposedly has. And I have been in a lot of such meetings, and you probably have as well. So in each of these meetings, you will have the naysayers. You will have the concern bearers. And in case there are too many Germans in that company, you will also have the Reich concern bearers, die Reichsbedenkenträger. And the phrases you hear are always the same. If a new idea is presented, it won't work because whatever. Or we have always done it this way. There is no really need to change something. And the absolute killer argument, of course, it's too expensive. Now, as Jan introduced, I'm an engineer and I'm talking about emotions. It's even worse, I'm a German engineer and I want to talk about what positive emotions have to do with innovation and personal change, and also professional change and changing your company. So are emotions really an inconvenient atavism, an evolutionary leftover? We're mostly concentrating on seeing, we are emotionally dismissing the new ideas we are confronted with. So maybe it would be good to get rid of emotions altogether. And it's tempting to think that way in the age of computers and in the age of AI, because often we are led to think that our brains are really just elaborate computers, forgetting, of course, that it was the brain that invented the computer, not vice versa. But let's abide to the transhumanist position for a moment and imagine it would be that. Then it would be really easy, because if you had new ideas you want to implement in your company, then you could just reprogram your employees, just like that. And if you want to implement new processes, this would just be like a firmware upgrade. And if the predictions are true and AI is taking over and robots are taking over your virtual employees, maybe it will be that easy for your virtual employees one day. But as long as you are working with human beings, and I dare say human beings will still have to work for a long time, even with AIs as assistants, we are structured somewhat differently. And I think this is not something very new I'm telling you now, but our brain has two halves, two hemispheres. And for all intents and purposes, let's make it simple. The left hemisphere is mostly responsible for what computers do, more or less. So it's the logical, straightforward, strategic thinking, which is more or less like data processing, the linear thinking. And the other half, that's the more colorful one, the imaginative, emotional, and creative half of ourselves. The thing is, every time we are confronted with something new, be this a perception of your senses or purely mental perception of a new idea, the whole thing is active, not just the one half. And this means whenever you're confronted with a new idea that you want to get into and assimilate for yourself, the whole thing must be active, and only the whole thing will amount to true knowledge. Now I want you to think about the last time you understood something. You were learning something and you understood something that was new, and the moment you had this realization, I'm sure this was an emotional moment and you felt great about it. You felt happy, enthusiastic, exhilarated. And whenever you are doing something you know really well, no matter what it is, be it driving your car or coding Java or doing presentations, this is something, there's not some database you're accessing. This is something you feel you can do, you're confident about. So you know the proof within yourselves that it is always connected, knowledge is always connected to emotions. And yet, the reason why new ideas are mostly dismissed for emotional reasons is not so much that this is just some genetic heritage we have to cope with, evolutionary. It is mostly the inability to dwell on these feelings of happiness, on these good feelings, because there is a certain bottleneck here. Our classical educational system does the best it can to cause as much brain damage as possible, so that we are not really, and this results in this more or less inability to learn quickly and to learn with enthusiasm. And this happy moment, this happy feeling that's underlying all new knowledge is severely underrated. What we have to aim for, and what I'm teaching people in my training, is that you have to trust your emotional basis and establish a calmness of mind and the ability to a priori say yes to anything that encounters you, and feel and trust that it may feel good rather than bad. And this is the basis for all personal, economic, and even scientific progress. So if you paint utopian pictures, or let your AI paint them, they do it really good these days, and you want to create enthusiasm about it, you need to aim for a state where people feel positively overwhelmed, which is beyond this instinctive dismissal you often encounter. To feel positively overwhelmed, this creates the energy and the drive you need to change, to innovate, and also to put your team together, of course, to have your whole team working, pulling on one strand. So for the close, I want to ask you, who has been in such a situation before? call all the cat people. So you can imagine your dog as well if you're a dog person. So it's the majority, and I want to conclude with that it's much more likely that you will encounter a cute and cuddly tiger in the dark alley rather than the dangerous one. Thank you.